Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about how to factor the following polynomials by, we said by number sense. This is kind of the way that I was taught when I was younger, which is a little bit of a guess and check kind of situation. And in some cases this works really well, and in other cases you will see that it is actually better to go ahead and use the box or by grouping. So, but we wanted to show you, some of my students have done this just on their own, and so we wanted to show you guys how to do this. So when you factor the polynomial by number sense, what you're doing is we're not going to use the box. We're going to basically say, okay, m squared plus 2m minus 24. So you will say, okay, well, you know that it's going to need to end up as two factors, right? And we know if this first one is m squared, then my first two numbers, and this works much better if you have a pencil because you're going to be doing a lot of erasing. So m squared, and so we know that m times m will give me the m squared. So in the second term, the number, this number times this number is going to give you negative 24. So this is where you can think of your two numbers where you say, okay, negative 24, so you just do the last number, and then it's going to add up to that 2m. Okay? So you want to think to yourself, all right, what two numbers do that? Well, I believe it would be positive 6 and negative 4, right? So what we can say is we can say, okay, well that would be plus 6 and that would be minus 4. And then you can kind of check yourself here where you say, okay, m times m, that gives me that m squared. M times negative 4 gives me negative 4m. 6m and negative 24. So we write here, and that gives us negative 2m, so this would be correct. So my factored form in this case would be m plus 6 times m minus 4. My simplified form was that original form that we gave us. So guys, when your coefficient, when your leading coefficient is 1, when it just says m squared or x squared or k squared or whatever it is, then this method works pretty much the same as it would otherwise, okay? Now, let's take a look at number 10. It also works really well with a problem like number 10 because this right here is going to be a prime number, that 5. So if we look at these right here, we see that this would be 5n, and that would be n, because that is the only way that you can get n squared, right? So this works well for us in this case because we can kind of guess and we can kind of check here. So then we'd say, okay, so because that's a prime number, now we're going to have to think of two numbers that multiply to 12. So 12 has some options here. We got 1 and 12, 3 and 4. Oh, I skipped 2 and 6, didn't I? Sure did. And it's a positive 12, so that'd be 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So both of my numbers here are going to be positive because that middle number is a positive. So both of those got to be positive. So now this is kind of where you've got multiple factors for 12. So you have to think to yourself, if I plug in, let's say, 2 and 6, well, 2 times 6 would be 12, but 2n, that would be 2n, and oh gosh, 30n, that's way too much. That's not 19n. So 2 and 6 are no good, okay? So I'm going to cross those off because that's not good. Let's try 3 and 4. Okay, 3 and 4. So 3n plus, oh, and that's 20n. That's no good. Okay, but I'm going to try 3 and 4 in the different spots. Whoops, not in. And the different factors here. So that would be 4n. Okay. Ooh, and then here we go. 5n plus 3 there. Oh, times 3 would be 15n. And that does equal your 19n. So these right here would be our two factors. So if we look at this, we see that our simplified form was that original form they gave us, 5n squared plus 19n plus 12. And the factored form was 5n plus 4 times n plus 3. And you want to go ahead and you want to actually check it, okay, because I kind of was doing these. And so let's see here. Let's actually check it. So 5n times n is what? 5n squared. And then 5n times 3, oh, we did it under here, would be plus 15n. 4 times n would be plus 4n, be plus 12, so that would be 5n squared plus 19n plus 12. So yes, that one does actually work for us. But you see it takes a little bit of finagling, kind of saying, okay, I'm going to use some of these numbers. All right, let's try it on number 11 here. All right, so for number 11, we have 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. So this one gets a little bit tricky because when we have our factors, 4 is not a prime number. So now this could potentially be 4x and x, or it could also be 2x and 2x. So there's lots of options here. Now for 25, it's either going to be 1 and 25 or 5 and 5. So let's try plus 5 and plus 5 here. So that would be 4x squared, and that would be 4 times 5 is what? 20x, and then plus 5x. Okay, so that's no good because that would give us 25x and we have 20x. So that's no good. Let's try it with 2. So I'm going to say plus 5 and plus 5. So we know 2x times 2x gives us that 4x squared. We know 2x times 5 gives us that 10x. This guy right here, 5 times 2x. Ooh, that also gives us 10x. Look at that. That together is going to give us 20x. I think this is the one we want. And then plus 25. So that becomes 4x squared plus 20x plus 25, okay? And that's what we started with, so yay, this is our factored form, okay? So the simplified form was that 4x squared plus 20x plus 25, and the factored form is that 2x plus 5, oh, times 2x plus 5, so that really is 2x plus 5 squared there. All right, so this is another little special case, which we will also talk about in just a moment. Now, so you see, that worked really well for this one. It worked a little bit, it worked well for this one, but we had to finagle things a little bit. It worked okay for this one, but we had different options we could do here. Now let's see what we can do here. So here's the problem. We always have to check and see if there's a GCF. And so we look here and we say, okay, 16, 60, and 100. Those are all divisible by something. So those are actually all divisible by 4. Okay, so when we pull out our 4 here, we get 4b squared plus 15b minus 25. So now we need to see if we can factor this guy. So remember, this was either going to be 4b and b, or it could be 2b and 2b. So let's see what happens. Oh, and it's 25 this time, not. Okay, so it's negative 25. So that means one of these is going to be positive, and one of these is going to be negative. We're not sure which. So I'm going to try negative 5 and plus 5. And so let's see what happens. Let's see here, so 4b times 4b, that gets me 4b squared. 4b times 5 gets me, what is that, 20b, and then, oh, 20b, negative 5b, negative 5 times b is negative 5b, and then minus 25. And would you look at that? That gives us negative 15. So we don't even have to try it with the 2b's because we found our answer. I got kind of lucky there, doing on my first try there. If I had done plus 5 and minus 5, it wouldn't have worked. So that one was actually kind of nice. I got kind of lucky there. But when we do this, we can say, okay. Oh, and don't forget our factored form. We can't forget about that 4. So it's 4 times 4b minus 5 times b plus 5. So this would be our factored form right here. And we see our simplified form was that original 16b squared plus 60b minus 100. And our factored form is 4 times 4b minus 5 times b plus 5. And guys, on all of these, it is extremely valuable to go back into your y equals here and put in that 16x squared plus 60x minus 100, because it's so easy to make little mistakes. 4 times 4x minus 5 times x plus 5. And we're going to check our tables, and we see that, yes, thankfully our tables match exactly. They are exactly the same. So we see that they match there. All right? And so that is a way that you can factor using kind of a number sense. You're not really using the box method or the grouping method. It works really well on problems where you have just an x squared or an m squared. It stops because it's basically just the box method without all the extra stuff. It stops working as well, quite as well, when you have that prime number. It makes it a lot harder when you have multiple options here, and then it's really difficult when you also have to take out a GCF. So on these guys, I probably would have done my box method or factor by grouping. So, but that's another way that you can kind of factor using your number sense.